Untitled and local trains. The next stop is Times Square, 47th Street.
All right, hello everyone. Today is December 29th, 2018. Only 2 more days left until we have a brand new year. And I just got off the N train at the 49th Street and 7th Avenue station. The W and R trains also run on this station as well. And I'm going to do a walk down Broadway from Times Square to 14th Street. If you don't like my narration, I've done other videos where I've walked Broadway without any narration at all, but here's this video. So right now I'm on 49th and 7th Avenue, and in front of me is the Barclays building. It used to be the home of Lehman Brothers before it collapsed in 2008. And Broadway is only 1 block away. That way. Now Broadway, when it gets to Times Square, it crisscrosses 7th Avenue. So right now we are in Times Square, even though the subway station's official Times Square stop is 42nd Street, Times Square. But I would recommend, if you're coming down on the subway, to get off at 49th Street or 50th Street or 53rd Street and walk down, because it's a much better view coming down rather than getting off at 42nd and coming up. Here's a lot of tour buses and a lot of tourists coming to New York around this time. It's the M&M's store. This M&M store is very busy during Christmas time. I'm all right, thank you. And now this is 48th Street and 7th Avenue. Just a quick word of warning about people asking you for money or donations in Times Square. Not all of them are up to good. Some of them, they may use their donations for some selfish reasons, and you never really know where their causes go. So I mean, it's your choice if you want to help or not, but I'd rather much donate to a reputable organization that's where I know where my money's going, and so I'll support that way. But now we're getting to 47th Street, and Times Square is a big area where it's called like the advertisement capital of the world, the crossroads of the world. It's known for the Broadway theaters, lots of tourists and people everywhere. Looks like they're getting ready for New Year's right now. It's a shame because I really wanted to go on top of this TKTS staircase and show you a panorama of Times Square from the top. But that's not happening today. Now this TKTS booth is very, very useful if you want to get discount Broadway shows and a lot of last-minute tickets. They'll usually discount them at the booth. Not all the shows will be available, but usually the ones that are left, they're not really bad seats. You are at the mercy of the supply of what they have, though, and they'll price the tickets accordingly. So it looks like this whole section of Times Square is closed off. And all these people here right now are lined up for the TKTS booth, which isn't even open yet. ready to buy tickets to shows and plays along Broadway and off Broadway. This H&M tower in front of me is the tallest building in Times Square. No, thank you. Now those costume characters are very aggressive. Once you interact with them, they'll try to have a picture with you, and then they'll ask you for donations or a tip. You're not required to give them a tip, but they'll give you intense pressure to do so. And it does make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. Now this is 46th Street. Now when they say Broadway plays and Broadway shows, most of them aren't actually on Broadway. They're on the side streets surrounding it, like 46th Street and 45th and 42nd. Looks like Planet Fitness has their stage up, or stages. There's 2 of them. And these costume characters are all out to get money. Now, the city does have designated areas for them to be in, those green spaces, but right now it's taken up by this, by the New Year's Eve preparation. So they kind of were forced to get away. Now these people to my left are CD hustlers. They'll come up to you, try to give you a CD, say it's for free. But once you take it, once again, they'll also haggle you for money, and I find them to be even more aggressive than the costume characters. Here's the Minskoff Theater, home of the Lion King, and there's Aladdin down there. Right here is a Japanese company, the Line Friend Store. And directly in front of me is 1 Times Square, where the New Year's Eve ball is going to drop in a few days. Now, there aren't any actual tenants inside 1 Times Square. It's just mainly a building for advertisements, funnily enough. The only tenant is on the ground floor, which is a Walgreens. Now when New Year's Eve comes, if you do want to come to Times Square, you have to be here really early to secure a very good spot, or else you'll be locked out and the city will just start closing off sections of Times Square going uptown. I remember one year I came at 6:00 p.m. and already the streets were closed up to, I believe, 50th Street, and the view wasn't even that good from where I was. So if you're here early, you have to be here at least at noontime to get a very good spot in Times Square, or else you'll be forced way back. Here's Bubba Gump Shrimp. It's a very tasty restaurant. Here's the ⁴ store. It's also related to the Line Friend store. Almost ran into that character just now. Have some photographers here. Now I'm on 7th Avenue and Broadway crosses over to the left, so I'm going that way. Here's the Midtown Police Precinct in Times Square. Now normally you're able to walk right into this area here, but the city has closed it off. They really want to prepare early. And I don't know if you saw it back there, but this section was, it had a letter on it, letter H. I'm assuming they're gonna label the pens different letters, so it'll be easier for the city to organize. Like they'll have section A, they'll close off section A at a certain time, or when it gets too filled up. I'm expecting a lot more visitors than usual to Times Square on New Year's Eve, mainly because the weather is warmer this year. And if you do plan on coming, I wish you the best of luck, because it's a long wait for the ball drop, and it's very, very difficult to go out and come back in to get something to eat or use the restroom. Now this is 42nd Street. It is one of the largest, widest crosstown streets in New York City. And as I was saying, if you're coming out for Times Square, many people, they wear diapers because it's almost impossible to get a restroom. Here's 7 Times Square, the Times Square Tower. They still have holiday wreaths up in the lobby. Now what I'm doing here is crossing against the walk signal. It is illegal to do so, but it's almost never enforced, and everybody does it anyway because it's the social norm in New York City. As long as you don't get hit by traffic, you're free to cross the street against the light. I definitely would not recommend it if you're not accustomed to it. Here's Joe's Pizza, original Joe's Pizza. I'm not sure if it's the original Joe's Pizza because everybody says they're the original Joe's or original Ray's or something. Today isn't really that cold. It's about, I believe, 45 degrees Fahrenheit, so I'm not even wearing gloves right now. Here's some food vendors on the sidewalk here. They're pretty tasty, the food vendors, depending on which one you go to. But just keep in mind that sometimes I'm a little bit skeptical of them because You don't really know how good their sanitary cleanliness is, and they're not required to post ratings of their health grades, unlike the brick and mortar stores.
40. I can't believe I'm not seeing it. Well, now you don't have to make it.
So I'm coming up on 38th Street now. This area would still be considered Midtown. Manhattan's districts are very loosely interpreted. Some people consider Times Square from 47th Street to 42nd, or they can consider it from 50th Street to 42nd, or it can even go as low as 40th Street. But in general, there are little subsections of neighborhoods within the bigger category, I guess you would say. To be safe, most people will consider Midtown anywhere between 59th Street and 34th Street. But if you go on Google Maps and click on Midtown Manhattan, you'll see it extends from 59th Street to 14th Street. So it's a very loose interpretation of where the boundaries of different neighborhoods are, or different sections of the city. Here's another pizza shop. One thing I highly recommend if you're coming to New York is to grab a slice of pizza, because it's really, really different and really good depending on where you're coming from. It's one of those things which defines New York, a pizza slice. Across from me is the Hyatt building. I don't really know the history of the building itself, but it looks like a very classical building. A lot of history. See, this is a time where I don't want to cross against the light. Here's a Shake Shack. Shake Shack has been exploding over the city over the past couple of years. It's pricier than most of the other fast food options around here, like McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts. But they do have good food. I don't think their prices are consistent from store to store, and I do have to turn the camera to the left and look up, because right there is the Empire State Building. It's the second tallest building in New York City after the One Freedom Tower. I'm fine, thank you. It's the second tallest building in New York City after the World Trade Center, the One World Trade Center, also called the Freedom Tower. That building, the Empire State Building, is located on 5th Avenue and 34th Street. Right now I am on 35th Street and Broadway, and this in front of me is the R.H. Macy and Company store, or simply known more commonly as Macy's.
That sounds
It's the largest department store in the world. The store still has their holiday decorations up. Now is a good time to see it because not too many people are in New York to see this. They're here to see New Year's. Some little history about this corner here, which has the sign up that says the world's largest store, Macy's. This store actually isn't owned by Macy's, this corner, and it's called the $1 Million Corner. Back in the day, Macy's offered to buy this corner for $1 million, but the property owners at that time refused to sell, and till this day it's still not part of Macy's. But they have the sign up on top of the store saying it's the world's largest store, Macy's, through a lease agreement. So this is 34th Street. In front of me is a pedestrian plaza. The city's been making more of these over the last couple of years. It's just some places to sit around and do some work, have a coffee, chat with people. I think it's a very neat addition to the city. The city does need more pedestrian space because I feel like there isn't enough. And I don't know if this camera is picking it up or if we can see it, but in front of me is the One World Trade Center, or the Freedom Tower, off in the distance. That's all the way in Lower Manhattan, and I won't be going there in this video. So now I'm crossing the street at 33rd Street because Broadway crosses over to the other side. An interesting fact, back in the day when the Dutch settled New Amsterdam and at the tip of Manhattan, Lower Manhattan, the Broadway route used to be an old Native American trail that followed the length of Manhattan. And to this day, Broadway more or less follows that old Native American trail from all the way from the bottom of Manhattan to the top. It's really a shame to see so many people that need assistance in New York, whether it be homeless or people with mental issues or need help in general. But you know, it's just a reflection of society. We all need to improve together, and only then will the cause be fixed. Here's someone who is unfortunately sleeping on the street. I mean, I don't really like to see that part of New York, but it is a part of the city. And the city does do a lot to help the homeless population, but something does need to happen. So I'm approaching 32nd Street. It's the heart of Koreatown. This one block here from 32nd Street, from Broadway to 5th Avenue, is mostly Korean businesses. You can find a lot of businesses anywhere ranging from a food hall to restaurants to bubble tea to karaoke bars. This area is much more lively at nighttime. So there it is, 32nd Street. Looks like there's a building coming up here on December 31st, 2019, the completion date. One thing about New York is there's a lot of this scaffolding, or a lot of people tease it and say they're quote-unquote sidewalk sheds. The city's required to have the property owners put them up because of laws protecting pedestrians and other people from construction debris. There's a big debate on whether many of them are even necessary. Some of them are just left up for years because there's been no maintenance done on the building, but because it's already started, it's much cheaper to maintain the sidewalk sheds than to upkeep the building. And it's really a shame to see all of them up, but if they are up for a legitimate reason for pedestrian safety, then I'm all for it. Here's a new construction going up. It's hard to believe, even in this day and age, 2019 coming up, that there's construction in New York City. You would think that Manhattan will be all developed by now, but every day I see tall buildings go up and more floors being added, maintenance being done. It's just the constant evolving nature of the city. Now the pedestrian signal is twisted to the side, so I have to just be a little bit careful, just like there. Don't want to be hit by that cab. We got NYPD here. I'm always happy to see them. I always feel safe when I see police around. Now I'm approaching the 1st Street and the 20s, which is 29th Street and the beginning of the Flatiron District. It's a shame this scaffolding is up, or else you'll be able to see the Flatiron building in front of me. But we'll see it soon. Here's the 28th Street subway station. The subway is one of the most effective ways to get around the city. It runs 24 hours a day, although there are some times where there are detours and track work being done and maintenance where you have to take another train or go back. It runs pretty frequently and it's really cheap. You can go anywhere within the subway station for the subway system for $2.75 per ride. And there are even unlimited ride options. An unlimited ride Metro card for 1 week costs $32, and an unlimited ride option for the monthly Metro card costs $121. Now keep in mind, I'm doing this video pretty much the last days of 2018, and the MTA are in talks to raise the fare price, so they're subject to change. If you are in New York City for a week and you plan to travel a lot, I'd highly recommend getting a unlimited weekly Metro card because you'll save a lot of money in the long run. Alright, now you can see the Flatiron building in front of me. That's at the intersection of Broadway and 23rd Street. That building has existed there for years and years. I don't really know how old it is, but it's one of the most photographed buildings in New York. Now you may see a lot of garbage bags and recycling bags on the curb here, and this is how the city does their trash collection.
Trying to keep over the shoulder on that fucking issue.
As a blind pedestrian, I want to be mindful and be careful of where I'm walking. Oh, finally, now we get some sun. So now this is Broadway and 25th Street. Broadway crosses over at this point to the left side. So I'll make my way over there. Plus, I don't think the sun is good for the view of the camera, so hopefully this will fix that a little bit. It's even hard for me to see right now. Okay, now the view is a little bit better. You see, even the Flatiron building has scaffolding and sidewalk sheds underneath it. Not even that classic building can avoid it. Now in front of me is Madison Square Park. It's a very, very nice park. It's small, quiet. If you would even consider it quiet, it's one of the few quiet spaces inside Manhattan. If you come to New York, you'll find out very quickly it's a very noisy place. There's no really getting around it. Even when you're in a store or you're up like a few floors, you'll still hear traffic and emergency sirens and people shouting, the subway, anything. Another thing about New York I have to warn you about is there aren't too many public restrooms in the city. Sometimes it is a little bit challenging to find a restroom, but if you usually go into a local business and support them financially, like Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, you'll find a bathroom there. Actually, Starbucks, you don't even need to pay anymore, but that's probably one of my last resorts to use it to find a restroom in the city is Starbucks, because you never really know how clean their restrooms are, and most of the time it's only one person occupancy, so you may be waiting a while. I usually prefer the big department stores like Macy's or the Manhattan Mall or the Time Warner Center, or just simply use the restroom at your destination or your origin point, like the restaurant or the Broadway theater. Wherever you're shopping, most of the time they'll be glad to give you a restroom. One of my favorite places to use restrooms are hospitals, because they're required to keep their restrooms clean and sanitary. And sometimes you can get restrooms at police stations, like that Midtown police station in Times Square. I don't think there is a restroom in there, but there are other smaller precincts in the city where they're required to give you a restroom if you ask. So that's another option. Now, if you've seen through this video, you might wonder what all those blue bikes are, where all the stalls. And that's the city's bike share system. Currently it's operated by Motivate, and they brand their bike share system as City Bike after the Citibank company. The name might change because Lyft, the operator of the car sharing service and for hire car service, bought out the company. The bike share system is pretty affordable. If you buy an annual membership, I believe it's $169, and a daily pass I believe is $12, I think, or maybe that's the 3-day pass, I'm not sure. And I know a single ride ticket isn't really worth it because it's more expensive than the subway. I think it's maybe $4. But the way the City Bike works is once you check out a bike, unless you have the annual membership, you have half an hour to use the bike. If you use the single ride ticket, that's all you get, just half an hour. Once you dock it into a new terminal, when you finish, that's it, you can't use it anymore. But if you buy the daily pass with the unlimited rides, you can actually dock your bike before the 30 minutes mark, wait 2 minutes because that's the cool down time to check out a new bike, and check out another bike for half an hour, 30 minutes. The annual members, they get 45 minutes to dock their bikes. Now here's something I'm always a little bit scared about. These metal grates with gaps in them. It's rare for someone to just step through them and fall down, but I've heard of that. It has happened before, and I'd rather not risk it. But these metal grates are also notorious for losing people's belongings, like rings or change or like iPods. Well, you won't use iPods anymore, but iPhones. And they also get slippery when it's wet, so I try not to step on them if I don't have to. Now I'm coming up on 18th Street. This is the beginning of Union Square. On the corner there is the Paragon Sporting Goods Company. It's a very good place to get any kind of your sports equipment. It's one of the few niche stores in New York that just deals with sporting equipment. Now Union Square is a very popular place, especially for NYU students and people coming here to get fast food or bars and restaurants. It's also a very commercial place. Barnes & Noble is here. You have Chipotle. Whole Foods is further down there. I believe there's a DSW there and a Nordstrom Rack. Wow, that sun is very strong. And now I'm entering the Union Square Farmers Market. I believe they have this farmers market every Saturday, weather permitting, or maybe they do have it rain or shine, I'm not sure. But I've bought many things from this farmers market, and I'd highly recommend you to check it out if you have time. The produce is very fresh, it's local. Sometimes you have some interesting selections, like here. Where else are you gonna get ostrich meat or bison steaks in the city? I even saw like bison ice cream and like heirloom tomatoes, organic stuff. Here's some honey products and bee products. Got some craft cheeses here, some bakery products. Are there enough apples here, huh? If you didn't know, New York is known as the Empire State, and it has a very big has a very big apple farm population in upstate New York. A lot of the harvests happen here just for the apples. So most of the time when you're buying apples here, it's local and it's usually pretty good. So this is the end of the farmers market. I'm going to head into Union Square Park right now. That's too bad because I really wanted to walk down there. That used to be the Union Square Holiday Market. I have a video up of when I walked the Union Square Market when it was open, but unfortunately it looks like it's after Christmas and they're closing up shop. Understandably so, because I don't really see a point for these vendors to be out here when there isn't any business to make. So instead I'll walk over to the west side of the park. No, excuse me, this is the east side. Here's the 14th Street Union Square subway station. A very busy subway station with many lines coming here. And now I'm approaching 14th Street, and this will mark the end of the video. I hope you like my walk down Broadway from Times Square to 14th Street, and hope you stay around for the next video.